Our next session is Whispers and Shadows Bringing Life to Ruins, where Janhwij Sharma will be in conversation with Dr. Meera Das and Upadhyay ji. Photography is the only language that can be understood anywhere in the world, while poetry is language at its most distilled and most powerful. A combination of two, like the photo poetry book by Mr. Janhwij Sharma, titled One Foot in the Ruin and the Other Poems, is sure to evoke powerful emotions in the readers. This photo poetry book comprises a collection of 90 poems that revolve around the monuments of India. Mr. Janhwij Sharma, who's authored this unique book, is a conservation architect by training and currently holds the position of Additional Director General at Archaeological Survey of India. He's been monitoring conservation of ASI monuments within and outside the country. He's been in charge of World Heritage Matters on behalf of ASI for the past 14 years. During his tenure, 16 monuments have become World Heritage properties. He's also spearheaded the conservation works outside India, noticeably in Cambodia. He has a number of publications to his credit, which include a book called Architectural Heritage Ladakh, published by Intact. Mr. Sharma will be in conversation with Dr. Meera Das and Mr. Upadhyay. A former member of the National Monuments Authority and convener Intact, Dr. Das is an art historian, conservation architect with specialization in matters of cultural policies. She's a writer and has deep interest in history and archaeology of the towns of India, both historical and current. She also runs her own podcast, and tomorrow we have a session where she will give us a glimpse into the podcast world that she's created and more information about her sessions. An IAS officer from the Madhya Pradesh cadre, Mr. Upadhyay, has served as the divisional commissioner in Bilaspur and Jabalpur divisions. He's also been the collector at Indore, Ratlam, Chhatarpur, Jabalpur, and Mandsaur. He's also been awarded by the President of India for 2 consecutive years for his outstanding performance for the outstanding performance of Madhya Pradesh in agricultural production. He has been awarded by the Commonwealth Association for Public Administration and Management. He's a member of the Governing Council of the Intact New Delhi and the convener of the Intact Bhopal chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, the session on whispers and shadows bringing life to ruins. Mr. Janhwij Sharma in conversation with Dr. Meera Das and Mr. Upadhyay.
Hello, good morning, everyone. And first of all, I welcome Janhvi ji to the city of Bhopal. With me is Mrs. Meera Das. Janhvi, as the name itself says, in Ganga. और हर चीज में हम कहते हैं कि something which is related to sanctity, purity, and I was quite amazed when I saw this book, One Foot in the Room, and then writing poems on rooms. एक किसी मुझे one of the time he once wrote, it was I was thinking a more appropriate title to the book would have been Romancing with the Rune, because you need to be so passionate to be with the Rune that your poetry it evokes poems in you. And every poem by Janvi Sharma ji speaks in depth about the reflective nature of the person and his poetry. एक one person has said कि मोहब्बत के लिए एक खास दिल मंसूब होता है। मोहब्बत के लिए एक खास दिल मंसूब होता है। ये वो नगमा है जो हर साज पर गाया नहीं जाता। So it is something like that, that poetry comes from is has to emerge from deep within. And when you are romancing with the runes, it carries a totally different meaning. The book of 90 pictures and then 90 poems gives a very comprehensive coverage of the landscape, the Indian landscape, history, art, culture, the ruins, our rich heritage, and it also speaks about the wonderful photographic skill that he possesses. I find that the ruins which he has visited, they are lucky that he could write poem on them. इकबाल का एक शेर है कि हजारों साल नरगिस अपनी बेनूरी पे रोती है। तो the ruin, nobody visits the ruins. तो इकबाल ने कहा हजारों साल नरगिस अपनी बेनूरी पे रोती है, बड़ी मुश्किल से होता है चमन में दीदावर पैदा। To appreciate the beauty of that small Nargis is a very small plant. You need to have very minute eye and to appreciate runes and write poems. It's a real talent, and I congratulate him to writing such wonderful book. Apart from poetry, it's also a guide to each one of us on how to capture good images. Particularly, he is an architect by profession and a conservationist and others by profession also. So they are my fellow architects here. You must have a vision how to take photograph. With these words, I hand over the mic to Meera ji.
हेलो। मैं ये बता दूं कि उपाध्याय जी खुद बहुत कविताएं लिखते हैं, उनकी प्रकाशित कविताएं हैं, तो ही कुड अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट राइटिंग पोएट्री इज ऑल अबाउट। दूसरी बात मैं बहुत ब्रीफली ये बोलना चाहती हूँ कि हमारे यहाँ बहुत अच्छे लेखक रही हैं महादेवी वर्मा जी, जो वो ड्राइंग भी बनाती थी और पोएट्री भी लिखती थी। So ये visual art का combination with poem is not unknown, but it requires a completely different mindset. Janhwij ji जो है वो architect है with great aesthetic sense and all that, and I found the book absolutely brilliant. Most of the time he is reacting to आप बहुत सारे इसमें देखेंगे कि डोरवे है and he's talking about past and present, the future of the past also, and the two different worlds that he visits. वैसे तो archaeology and ancient architecture by itself evokes a whole lot of emotion, and that is one of the reasons why people go there. And it has an attraction which is far greater than so many things. And to be able to capture them in a photograph, it also it is not just a self experience, एक तो whole body experience होता है, but to be able to take photographs and then to express it in poetry, I think it is a very good combination. And इनके दो तीन फोटोग्राफ पर मैं खास तौर पे किताब में है उस पर ध्यान आपका आकर्षित करूंगी। एक दिस इज अदर देन द सीरियसनेस ऑफ द रेस्ट ऑफ द फोटोग्राफ्स। एक फोटोग्राफ है जिसमें एक ट्रक जा रही है जिसके पीछे पूरा ताजमहल पेंटेड है। सो उसको आई थॉट इट वाज वेरी आइकॉनिक एंड वेरी वेरी फैसिनेटिंग। it's a question of identity also, you know, how everybody, all of us know what is Taj Mahal. आप उसमें नया क्या दिखा सकते हैं? I mean, it is that's a brilliant one. And then there is another photograph, and I'll not comment on the poetry because Upadhyay ji is much more qualified to do that. और एक पिक्चर उसमें और है जिसमें एक prosthetic leg एक उसके अंदर रखा है, मकबरे के अंदर है शायद वो, तो एक दरगाह के अंदर रखा है फतेहपुर सीकरी का। And one foot in the ruins का एक वो completely different aspect है। ये this book is absolutely remarkable, and I so congratulate him and thank him for having brought out this book. Over to Janhwij ji.
Uh, I think before I begin, I would like to thank the organizers for giving somebody like me an opportunity to come and present my work here. This is my maiden work. As far as this domain of archaeology, architecture, poetry, all combined. So you can imagine that I'm a bit nervous also here. Um Unfortunately, Mr. Upadhyay, I can't change the topic of this book, sorry, the title of this book, but you've given me the title of the next book. And that's something that is a work in progress at the moment. Now, let's see. Another thing that I thought I would say is that I'm so used to making PowerPoint presentations where I work for all aspects related to heritage, conservation, World Heritage, that to be not able to see this and then talk about it's a bit difficult. So, Meera and Upadhyay ji, if you allow, no, no, I think you would also want to see it. Perhaps if we could. Why I'm saying a presentation here because this book is actually about, of course, it is about monuments. It's about what is written about a monument, the moods and the reflections, etc., etc. But because it essentially involves photograph, and it has 90 photographs and 90 poems, to be able to understand that, the nuance, I think having a look at the image and then talking about it, perhaps be more pertinent here. So if you kindly allow, I would have the presentation ready here and I would speak along with as I as the slides turn on. Next, please. I'll stand here. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. See, I'm an architect by profession, and for me, it's such a unique and a blessed opportunity to be in the Archaeological Survey of India, which is obviously all about archaeology. And how I got there and is another story. But it has given me an extraordinary opportunity to walk around, to visit monuments across the length and breadth of this country. And I've been very fortunate that the last 17 years that I have been doing so. And therefore, what I personally think is that as an architect, when you're visiting the archaeological sites or the ruins or even the ancient monuments, you have a slightly different perspective than a very puritanical archaeological perspective, and that is something that I think would perhaps reflect in most of the points that I have written and articulated. Uh, Also, it's an opportunity for me to visit past architecture, and I very strongly believe. Normally, we talk about three dimensions. Anything has three dimensions: length, breadth, width. But I think the fourth dimension is time, which we normally don't talk about, and therefore, when you're visiting any monument, the aspect of time is very critical, and we all interpret it in a very different way. And therefore, not only it is the time, but it is also the timelessness. And as I said, that many monuments that I have visited, at least I've had an experience of it, and I'm sure many of you who have been visiting monuments across the country and maybe outside as well. Whenever we talk about the ancientness and all, so it's all embedded in its physical fabric. So you're decoding that in terms of its time and timelessness. So therefore, many of the poems that I've attempted to write would have that element very strongly inbuilt in that. And then, of course, the expressions and the reflections that it sort of brings out. So the poems that I have written, therefore, would have a kind of an experiential, I would say, aspect to it, wherein I have tried to interpret and reinterpret it in my own way. And this is, of course, apart from as I said, my professional, I would say, work that I go for any monument. And I'm sure you all agree that the ASI often is in limelight, and some issue or the other keeps on cropping up. So we all have to go to the monuments. And in fact, a couple of my colleagues are also here, and they can vouch for it that we travel quite extensively to resolve some issue or the other, whether it is conservation related or archaeology centric. Next, please. So first, I thought I'll give you my reflection as an architect who goes to an archaeological site. And I'll start, next please, with a very important critical site. Uh, I'm sure you would have heard of Bholavira, which is a Harappan period monument. It's a settlement in the west part of India, in Kutch in Gujarat, on a little island called Kadir. And on the western edge of this island, not very far off from the India-Pakistan border, is this particular site. And this site, even though it might seem in isolation, but it is of course not, there is a whole network of Harappan period sites that you would find dotting in the western parts of India, notably Rajasthan and Gujarat. This site has, as the archaeologists interpret it, has seven phases of its history or occupation, starting from somewhere as early as 2900 BCE and goes all the way to its decline, which happens around 1600 BCE. So there is a 1300 years of a constant occupation of this particular site. And of the five largest Harappan period settlements, this is one of them. And I was fortunate to be associated with it in my own way when we were nominating it for World Heritage, and it is now a World Heritage site. So I happened to visit it again and again. And I think in one of those visits, perhaps when I was returning, it has its own fascinating story about how it was discovered and how it was excavated I think 15 or 16 years, in continuous. So it's got a very fantastic storyline to it in terms of how it was, excavated. So, the point that I wrote, I think I had gone there and I was returning from there. I had titled it Timeless. Next, please. So if you allow me, I'll read from this. Uh, it was early morning that I was there. The howling winds at the crack of dawn, flutter of leaves, and the whispering sounds. Peacocks together sing in chorus. Clouds afloat, a city long gone. Harnessing my thoughts as I sit on a lonely bench watching, my eyes adjusting through a veil of dust, rises again before my eyes the city lived long ago. Ode to the Discoverer. Dr. R.S. Fish, who is one of the renowned archaeologists and also Padam Shri, is credited with its detailed excavation. So, Ode to the Discoverer and the Explorer, passionate diggers whose maddening zeal brings to life unfathomable wealth and timeless tales. Civilization disappeared long ago, unfolded, unraveled, and unveiled. Silent stones speaking loudest, telling tales of a culture dead, standing before the tall edifice spread before me like a giant asleep. I marvel at the precision, perseverance of humanity millennia before. Is the city really dead? I question myself standing before. The city shall rise again. I personally believe it's not dead, as we all perhaps think it to be. From the buried cocoon of time reveals itself rising out of mounds and undulation because it was at one point in time nothing but a very large undulating mound. Uh, Hospitable land forgotten long ago. Many stories had been told, many questions answered, many stories still untold, many questions yet remain. And then when I was returning, it's time for me to leave, return to life and its humdrum. I look back and I pause. The city lies behind me, timeless and still. So this was about Bolavira that I had written about 4 years back. Next, please. Another very important site, which I was telling some of my friends here yesterday, as Sanchi Stupa was an important discovery of the late 19th, early 20th century, and the conservation efforts that went out when Marshall came and did the conservation works. I think in the early 20th century, this particular site in northeast Karnataka, perhaps most of you wouldn't have heard its name, is called Kanganahali Stupa from a place called Simati. What is exciting about it is that this very large stupa, about 30-meter in diameter, but it's not obviously complete like Sanchi is, but it has very unique 62 panels, each panel about 4 feet by 11 feet, with Jatak tales and other stories, donation panels and all that. What makes this stupa absolutely rarest of rare is that from here only clear image with an inscription on it of Rai Ashoka, that is the Emperor Ashoka, was discovered from this particular place. The only other image of Ashoka perhaps that comes to our mind is Shah Rukh Khan, but this one is the authentic first century BCE image of Ashoka that comes from this site. And this site, where at one point in time it was an agricultural land, and therefore the whole site was exposed. Of course, initially with the intention that we may get some relics here, which we didn't. The ASA did not get it. But anyways, the site is now open, and we are in the process of preserving it. And so, from my perspective, I think it is one of the very important rare sites in that part of the country. So here is the title called Excavated because it's also an excavated remains. Next, please. Ruins brought out of land. Once it's been excavated, the curious digger with gentle hand nibbles away with overpowering earth, excavating the ground beneath. Once a mere gentle undulation, now a monument from centuries ago, long forgotten, now rediscovered through little evidences on the ground. It's fascinating to see how archaeologists look at these little evidences on ground to sort of pick up what is happening under the ground. And of course, this is far before that you have the GPRs and all equipment that is available. Unearthed remains brought to fore testaments of the era silent long back. Traders, travelers, and the laity of worshippers gathered eons ago. Message of peace and unity, it's a Buddhist site. Stories of eulogies and hope, path to sacrifice and salvation, sharply scripted on walls and panels. Time flies and time settles, burying stories under the dust of time. Time unwinds and time unwraps, bringing ruins to another life. Time now stands still. So I'm a very firm believer, as I said in the beginning, that this aspect of time, you can actually decode it in your own ways through whenever you're visiting these monuments and these ruins. Next, please. So now monuments, how they narrate about their own past. Thought I'll give you a couple of examples of that, which I've written in my book. Next, please. So, of course, Nalanda needs no introduction. Nalanda was a very important Nalanda Mahavihar, which is also now a World Heritage Site, was a very important learning center, one of the largest in the South Asia. It was under, again, continuous use from 5th century up to 3rd century before it was eventually plundered. Next. It's the title Abode of Knowledge where mendicants and scholars lived freely, gave the world the gift of knowledge, where stupas and temples mingled with libraries and schools, where gurus and disciples practiced a unique way of teaching and learning, where ideas flourished and practiced, disseminated later around the world, where the divine mingled with the laity and travelers arrived in search of peace, where the air still vibrates with knowledge, resonating through its excavated remnants, where power and peace, wisdom and respect made their ways into our minds. Such was the longest abode of the education that gave the world a shining light. So this is what I had written on Nalanda. Next one. I think somebody has to keep track of time, otherwise I may go on and on. This is a very important, you would be. आप मुझे खड़ा कर दीजिएगा हाथ से I'll stay quiet. Uh, this is another interesting panel from Mahabalipuram or Mamalapuram, an 8th century Pallava period panel called the Arjun's panels. It's one of the iconic, I would say, art pieces that we have. And it's a very prominent monument in Mahabalipuram, apart from the Shore Temple that we all are aware of. And this is also a part of the World Heritage Site network of Mahabalipuram. And this is titled One Giant Story. Next. One Giant Story sculpted on a vast canvas, and this is a granite rock. Celestial beings flying with folded hands, descending one by one in their corporeal avatars to mingle with the people around. One giant story, etched on a giant rock, the descent of the Mother River, and the central cleavage that you see in the rock is supposed to represent the river Ganga, which is descending. The penance of the holy warrior, mendicants contemplated in his little cave, animals joining the spectacle, rejoicing the holy alliance. One giant story, forever set within the rocky landscape, celestial beings coming continue to bless, conveying to each onlooker the sublime continuity in all living things. The divine spectacle remains in perpetual display. So that was on Arjun's panel on Mahabalipuram. Next. A remarkable story. I don't know if you've heard of a site called Abu Simbel in Egypt, a site which was transplanted, when a dam was being built. So while the whole world would know about Abu Simbel in Egypt, nobody knows, or perhaps very few of us would know of a site called Nagarjun Konda, which is now in Andhra Pradesh. And again, when there was a dam which was being built, the whole region was being obviously inundated. So it was decided to transplant monuments which were there in the valley and take them up on a hill. At one point in time, it was a plateau of a hill, and now it has turned into an island. So, well, of course, there were a number of monuments, and it was not possible to retrieve all of them, but about 20-25 of them, which comprised viharas, stupas, megalithic sites, temples. So the representatives of each of these were then transplanted from their original location and they were brought out on the island. And it's one of the most extraordinary sites that perhaps we have. It's surprising why is it not on the World Heritage List as of now. It deserves to be there. But this island is something I would really encourage all of you to visit, and you would have a very interesting surreal experience if you go there. And thankfully, it is completely disconnected. Thank you. So this is called the island. Next, history sits on the edge. So this is a 9th century little shrine on a hill turned into an island. Time forgets the journey it made. Monuments move to an ageless world. Sense of stillness fills the air. Gently the breeze whispers stories of the displaced edifice set within the unforgiving landscape. It's one of the very difficult areas. Quiet all around, no life inside, sedentary and calm in perpetuity. Monument and the island play in unison eternal music. So that was what I wrote when I visited Nagaj and Konda. Next. I think I'll try to skip now that I've got the slip here. Next one. And I'll see which are the. Okay, I'm an architect. I have to interpret architecture in these monuments in my own way. So I'll read one of the 2 or 3 points that I have shortlisted. So this is called I See. And this is when the conservation works were happening at one of the barrack buildings inside the Red Fort building. Uh, Next, please. So those who are architects can understand there are these elements of design, point, line, symmetry, rhythm, movement. All these we study as architecture students. I see perspective. I see point. I see focus. I see journey. I see movement. Well, I see my destination. I see lines merging in the middle. I see architecture crumbling, yet firm on its feet. I hear gentle music in alternating light and shade. I see patterns in rhythmic solids and voids. I see textures beginning to peel, narrating tales of an era bygone. I can't escape that. Sharing stories never heard before, histories never earlier told. I see myself standing at that cusp of time, stepping backwards and forwards, marching forward, yet slipping back in time. I see. So that was what I had written when this work was happening, and I used to go there repeatedly. Next. I think I'll skip this one. I'll see one or maybe one more I'll read. I'll skip this one because now the time is a little less. The next one. Next one. Okay, this one I think should be the last one. This is Karle Caves in near Pune. 2nd century BCE caves. What is remarkable? Well, there are series of Buddhist caves. We know about Ajanta, Ellora, Elephanta. Elephanta is not Buddhist. Ajanta and Ellora are there, but there are a series of such cave sites, and this is one of the very important ones. What is interesting here, as you see in this image, you see the ribs, the circular ribs of which is holding the ceiling. Actually, the caves need no such support system. But here, of course, at that point in time, it was provided by the carpenters or craftsmen of the period. What is interesting is that the ribs that you're seeing are all wooden, and they're all from 2nd century BC. So it's remarkable that wood is surviving for the last 2,400 years. So I had visited this monument. In fact, I visited it last year, somewhere around July. Again, I thought that wood cannot survive the monsoons, and monsoons are pretty severe in this part of the country. But yet, 2,400 years, this wood is surviving. Next. So it's titled Built to Last, built for permanence, built to last forever, built to outlast time, built to remember, built for the mortal, built to outlive time, built to pray because it's a vihara, it's a Buddhist vihara, built to free the souls, built to let go of time. Built for perpetuity, built to remind nothing is permanent, but stones crafted to halt the eternal cycles of time. So this is what I had, experiences when I was at Cardiff Caves. Next one. I'm being very greedy. I'm trying to stretch. Next one. Next one. I think is there anything further? Next one. Next. Okay, last one. I promise. This is Bhatner Fort in Hanumangarh. It's built on a mount. It's built over centuries, but its earlier reference goes back to third, fourth century CE, and then till medieval period, it was continuously being built, rebuilt, occupied, etc., etc. So here, this is perhaps a reflection, and I've actually did preparing myself. Next one. Turning back, my past fades away. Marching forward, the future lies ahead. In between the now, a moment on the edge where I stand, where I'm trying to see both sides of me, trying to pause and reflect, standing on the edge of what I had been and what should I be. I've lived some dreams and I've failed a few. I've had some gains, some left me in pain. Preparing myself yet again to take steps forward, hoping not to sleepwalk back into the debris of past memories. I think, given the paucity of time, I would stop here. Thank you very much for patiently listening. And that will finish it. Thank you.
I think without wasting any further time, I would like to just thank Janhwij Sharma ji for having accepted the invitation. Uh, mm, just one last thing, Janhwij Sharma ji looks after the World Heritage Site and represents India in UNESCO and wherever the presentation is to be made for World Heritage Site. So nothing goes to UNESCO without, he represents it wherever in the world. And highly kind of technically sound on that issue. And I wish we had more time to understand how World Heritage sites, what kind of responsibility comes with it, and how many World Heritage sites we have, and how it has done us pride. And if there are more to be included, then he could have really briefed us on that as well. Um, अच्छा,
Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, I think the state government of Madhya Pradesh is phenomenally active as far as World Heritage is concerned. We recently received proposals of, I think, 8 or 9 sites which we have put up on the tentative list. India has 56 sites on the UNESCO's tentative list, which is precursor to any site coming on the World Heritage list. So yes, Madhya Pradesh, I would say, is one of the perhaps most active states. It keeps us on toes all the time. And to Sir Ragachandra sir, आपने यूनेस्को क्रिएटिव सिटीज का बात किया सर अभी कॉल फॉर एप्लीकेशंस ओपन है सर and you're very right sir that India has 6 or 7 such cities on the list. Banaras is there, Srinagar is there, I think Indore is there. So definitely Bhopal deserves a place as a city of literature as other some of the European cities. So अगर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से ये आता है and Ministry of Culture spearheads this program on UNESCO Cities Creative Cities program. Surely sir, I think this is one very sound nomination that should come from India sir. I just thought आपने क्योंकि इसका जिक्र किया, I thought I'll make a comment here sir. Yeah.
So thank you very much, and we had a great session. Thank you, Upadhyay ji, for being here. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause for our dignitaries? And due to paucity of time, we will not have a question answer session. I now request Niharika ji to present the BLF memento to our speakers of this session. The session was on whispers and shadows, bringing life to ruins. Janhwij Sharma in conversation with Dr. Meera Das and Mr. M.M. Upadhyay. Thank you, Mr. Sharma, Dr. Das, and Mr. Upadhyay.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Sir, one question before the next session starts. How do you service the maintenance of the World Heritage Sites across the states as far as Delhi is concerned? I mean, we have got number of World Heritage Sites, but their maintenance, their upkeep, and do you have some straight budgets for that? Because Madhya Pradesh is also topping the list, and we are much worried about the heritage sites.
So बात घूम फिर के ऐसे में आई जाती India has 43 World Heritage Sites, of which 26 are with ASI, and rest are with other, जैसे Ministry of Environment and Forest के साथ 8 sites हैं, Railways के पास 2 sites हैं, कुछ private sites भी हैं. जहाँ तक हमारे सर कोशिश ये रहती है कि जो हमारा बजट है हमें मिलता है, तो उसमें हर क्योंकि ये सारे देश में फैली हुई हैं, तो our circles are obviously as a matter of priority World Heritage Sites को लेके we ensure कि उनमें जो भी काम जो भी टाइम टू टाइम काम तो लगा ही रहता है